Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and so excited to have back with me a fan favorite, Raw Egg Nationalist, who, of course, wrote one of the best-selling book, The Eggs Benedict Option, and has been talking about the cleanliness of our food supply and a lot of different critical things that I think are fascinating. And he actually wrote a piece today that I want to talk to him about initially, that is from Valiant News, and it's titled The View from Somewhere. So, Raw Egg Nationalist, thanks so much for joining me again today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Jenna. Thank you.
Thanks. So this piece is interesting, especially for conservatives, because I think that we look at the term climate change and automatically reject that as this is a myth. It's a leftist conspiracy theory. It's a pretext for more power, and there's not evidence of climate change. All of the things that we reject from the World Economic Forum and so forth. But in this piece, the critical phrase, I think, from here in the quotation is, quote, because climate change is everywhere, it is effectively nowhere. It exceeds our capacity to conceptualize, and we must almost entirely surrender our response to international and supranational institutions. And so as I was reading this, what you describe as the chemicals that have pervaded our food supply and our environment since the 1940s and beyond are really what you're talking about in terms of climate change. So kind of unpack this and why we as conservatives, which is mainly my audience and the people listening, unless you're the leftist high and you're just here because you're haters, we like you too. But please unpack this and why this is actually critical for people to recognize the harm.
So what the article starts off with is a discussion of a new study that's basically revealed that freshwater fish in the US are, which a lot of people rely on actually to, as a sort of staple part of their food supply, massively contaminated with a class of chemicals known as PFAS, which are perfluoroalkyl substances. And they're used in a variety of different applications. They're used as fire retardants. They're used in non-stick pans, and they have other applications as well. But basically, these chemicals are nasty, nasty chemicals. The more we know about them, the more reason we have to worry about them. They encourage weight gain. They're obesogens, which is the technical name for chemicals that encourage weight gain. They're endocrine disruptors, so they interfere with our normal hormonal balance, and that's bad for both male and female. So they have feminizing effects in males and all sorts of other nasty effects in women. Anyway, basically this is about the food supply. It's about just how contaminated the food supply is with a wide variety of really nasty industrial chemicals in the US and elsewhere in the developed world as well. Um, and the point I'm really trying to make is that we need to reclaim the term environmentalism, because environmentalism is now synonymous with climate change. When you say, I'm an environmentalist, people assume, well, okay, what that means is you care about climate change and you think that it's the most important issue facing humanity today. That is what an environmentalist is. An environmentalist is Greta Thunberg. An environmentalist is a climate change activist. Whereas actually there's a whole host of equally pressing, perhaps even more pressing issues that face us today with equally spectacular effects that are totally obscured by the fact that when you talk about saving the environment, all you can really permissibly talk about is climate change. There's a whole host of local issues that are totally obscured by this planetary frame of reference that is sort of necessarily entailed when you talk about climate change. So these are the kinds of issues that I'm talking about. Are the kinds of issues that Tucker Carlson has really sort of shined a light on, especially with The End of Men, which was the documentary that I was in and some friends of mine were in. And I think that conservatives, there's no reason why conservatives shouldn't be environmentalists. And I think we need to realize that actually you can care about the environment as a conservative. In fact, you should.
You should.
Because there's possibly nothing more worth conserving than the environment, really. I mean, it's and it's a great shame that the left has totally captured environmentalism, as it were.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. And for the people who do have this understanding that the left has hijacked this term environmentalism and it is synonymous with climate change, which to the average conservative, I think, is also synonymous with a pretext for globalism and all of this unending and unyielding power. And we all need to just worship, Mother Earth, and we need to forget about human beings. And with this, and whatever is better for the earth, then if it's depopulation, who cares about humanity, right? I mean, a lot of these really, really end results that are just crazy, that are more of the leftist terms. We also have to go back and say, well, wait, the opposite extreme isn't the solution. Where I've seen some people under the guise of conservatism have said, I don't care about the environment at all. Let me, cut down a bunch of trees and who cares? And so that's not the correct response either. But what we don't want to do is use any of these terms as a pretext for more government power or for globalism and tearing down borders and national sovereignties and things like that. But what we should be concerned about is not just completely disregarding some of the very issues that you're raising, because I was surprised going through this article and some of the other pieces that you've written, and certainly your appearance on Tucker's documentary, to find out how damaging a lot of these chemicals truly are to our food supply. And for conservatives, a lot of people are very concerned about MSG. They're concerned about GMOs. They're concerned about the fact that, like we talked about on the show previously, that seeds aren't even the root of what can be grown anymore. I mean, they're genetically modified to not even produce anymore. And we are concerned about this. So that makes us environmentalists in a genuine and true sense of that word. But my question is then, assuming we are concerned about these things, and we should be, then what is behind all of these chemicals that are now in freshwater fish? Was this intentionally done by the government, or how did we get here?
It's difficult to ignore the fact that actually eugenicists and philosophers and population scientists and people with connections to government since certainly the early decades of the 20th century have been talking about various methods of population reduction, reducing fertility levels by putting sterilants in the water and things like that. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that people have been saying that for a long time. Very powerful people have been saying that. Paul Ehrlich, for instance, in his 1968 book, The Population Bomb, said that we would need to, or that the benevolent elite would need to reduce the global population, possibly through putting sterilant in the water. So, I mean, yes, there is definitely a background of people who would like that sort of thing to happen. I think that for the most part, these chemicals are in the water and the food and the soil and the air because we have the wrong attitude towards progress, towards the creation and use of new chemicals. So our basic assumption is that a chemical is safe until proven otherwise. That's generally how chemicals are treated. So, you can use an industrial chemical until it becomes clear that actually it's having all sorts of horrible effects. Well, actually, I think that what we need to do is we need to take the reverse approach, and we need to say that chemicals should be treated as harmful until proven otherwise.
Yeah,
So
which
so
makes
these
sense. I mean, this
yes.
is the same approach that a lot of the government has toward any sort of medicine, which is chemicals. Frankly, I mean, any sort of like the vaccine, for example, and they take this approach that it is helpful until it's proven that it's harmful, instead of going through these testings. But continue with what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think that these chemicals really are in the food and water and the wider environment simply because we've adopted this attitude, and because these chemicals are necessary to all sorts of industrial processes: BPA, phthalates, all these different plasticizers, things like PFAS are essential parts of the manufacture of plastic. And we live in a world now that is dominated by plastic. I mean, plastic is essential to the modern way of life. It's essential to the whole consumer lifestyle that we live now. And unfortunately, there are big vested interests now behind plastics and the manufacture of plastics, and it will cost a lot of money for these big corporations to stop using plastic or to develop alternative methods for manufacturing plastics. And in fact, maybe it's not even clear that they can manufacture plastics without these harmful chemicals. So it's a very, very tangled issue, but it's one that we really do need to confront because I mean, it has the potential to have catastrophic effects. I mean, there's a book that's the basis of the Tucker Carlson documentary, and that I talk about in the Eggs Benedict option. It's called Countdown by Professor Shanna Swan. She's been on Joe Rogan. She's a reproductive health expert at Mount Sinai University in New York, and she extrapolates from present data and comes to the conclusion that by the middle of the century, by 2045, basically it could be impossible for us to reproduce by natural means. So the median man will have a sperm count of 0. And what that means is that half of all men will produce no sperm whatsoever, and the remaining 50% will produce so few sperm that they might as well produce none anyway. So, I mean, it's a clear and present danger. It's something that there's all sorts of scientific backing for that very, very pessimistic prediction, and we should be taking it seriously. But the thing is, we're not.
So the question is this just a byproduct for the plastics industry and the pharmaceutical industry that wants to make money, and they just don't care about the damaging harm and the side effects? Or is this a benefit and an intentional feature rather than a bug? Because some people would say, well, this is where the globalists want to go with depopulation, and that's an intentional feature. Or do we know kind of where the mindset is behind why they're using such damaging chemicals in our food supply?
I think that there are all sorts of different kinds of damaging chemicals, so we have to be careful to separate the different kinds. I mean, I think that the kind of chemicals that are associated with the manufacturing of plastics, I think that's probably just fortuitous if for the globalists, if their aim is indeed depopulation and to reduce fertility. There are definitely huge vested interests working against cleaning up the environment. I mean, look at Monsanto, now owned by Bayer. Look at glyphosate, I mean, the evidence for glyphosate being harmful is enormous, and yet still it's being used. The same goes for atrazine. I mean, one very, very interesting rabbit hole to go down is aspartame, and Donald Rumsfeld's involvement with the licensing of aspartame for human consumption. The money that he received basically as a kickback for helping to get aspartame licensed for consumption, despite the fact that there was already significant evidence that it could have some quite serious health effects, including possibly brain cancer, I think. So yeah, I mean the whole system is there's huge amounts of corruption, definitely, and there's a lot of there are a lot of barriers to reform, and it needs a determined political popular campaign. I think really it needs to become a popular issue if it's ever going to change.
How do you find that that would be effective in terms of messaging when you have the weaponization of a term like climate change being synonymous with environmentalists and a lot of conservatives who do care about clean eating? They are against GMOs, but there does seem to be this great divide. And some people would say, well, hey, this isn't the most pressing issue. So how can we change awareness, and can we even eat cleanly? And, how should we move forward with this?
It's like everything today. It's incredibly polarized, and you only need to look actually at the response to the Tucker Carlson documentary, "The End of Men," to see that the mainstream media. This is not an issue that the mainstream media wants people to care about. So the Tucker Carlson documentary was by turns gay, homoerotic, and then it was fascistic, of course, because Tucker was trying to suggest that maybe we ought to take care of ourselves and we ought to encourage people to be fit. Well, that's fascism. So there are very powerful barriers, I think, to mainstream acceptance of this as a very, very pressing issue. And I think that I don't know how much worse it's going to have to become before people really sit up and take notice, because actually it's bad enough now. It's you only need to look around you, go outside, go walk around your local town or city and look at people, look at how unhealthy people are. And if you're of a certain age, if you're 30 or 40, you will probably remember that actually when you were younger, people didn't look like that. Things are changing quickly. So yeah, it's a difficult issue, and I think it's going to have to be a combination of a grassroots movement, and there are grassroots environmental movements in the US. There have been grassroots movements against Monsanto, and people like that. But I think what we need is a grassroots movement, rather like the 19th century populism, that pushed back against the great robber barons and the sort of overweening corporations in the Gilded Age. But I mean, in the meantime, what people can do is they can mitigate their personal exposure to these chemicals, and that is important, I think. And there are all sorts of different ways you can do it. But what you have to remember is, sadly, that you probably aren't going to be able to avoid coming into contact with these chemicals entirely. There's just no way in the modern world of getting away from them. They are everywhere. We've found microplastics in Antarctica. Microplastics circulate in the air. They're on the bottom of the ocean. They're in the Alps, in the snow. So what you have to do is you just have to accept that you are going to be exposed to some degree to these chemicals, but you can mitigate your exposure by filtering your water, buying organic produce, taking an interest in where your food comes from, which is something that a lot of people actually don't do. But you would be better off buying from trusted local sources, from local farms. Take an interest in where your produce comes from, and prepare as much of your food as possible. That's another thing that I would say, because of course processed foods are absolutely packed full of these horrible chemicals. They're packed full of herbicides and pesticides, and yes, these plasticizers and all this other garbage that we really, really need to reduce our exposure to.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to me that the emphasis on all of these, social media influencers and how people look. There's such an extreme focus on being fit and thin and beautiful in our social media view, but then what we eat, people don't see any real rational relationship between that, which is entirely false. And so they tend to use filters and other things to achieve a fake a beautiful look rather than actually caring about what goes inside their bodies. And so for some people listening to this, what are just a couple of practical ways that they can reduce their chemical intake besides obviously, growing organic or buying organic or even preparing their own foods? I mean, because I'm thinking of things like even just washing my hair this morning. I mean, that's, shampoo and is full of chemicals, and soaps and, all of these things that we come into contact with every day, makeup, even things that are potentially dyes in our clothing, a lot of chemicals that go into laundry detergents. I mean, this is everywhere. It's not even just in the foods that we consume.
No, absolutely. Personal care products are a big source of exposure to chemicals like phthalates, which are endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors, to parabens. There's all sorts of nasty stuff in most commercial personal care products. So, I mean, there are ways that you can wash your hair without using commercial shampoo. You could invest in some tallow soap rather than using, sort of the normal soap from the supermarket. Reduce your reliance on plastic. That's one thing that I would say. So, stop drinking out of plastic water bottles. Absolutely do not heat food in the microwave in plastic either, because that's a recipe for disaster. It will leach all sorts of horrible chemicals into the food. So yes, I mean, as much as you can, perhaps without getting sort of too obsessed. Just try to reduce your reliance on products that you don't really know where they come from, and that you can't really sort of summarize their ingredients probably in sort of 4 or 5 different items. You're much better off washing your hair with egg yolks and maybe a bit of apple cider vinegar than you are using a commercial brand of hair product, and likewise with soap and other things like that. Deodorants, for instance, are a big source of aluminium contamination and things like that. So yeah, you really want to reduce your reliance on products like that.
Well, and I'm just also sitting here thinking, wow, washing your hair with egg yolks, that'll be very pricey now, even more than the most expensive shampoo, given the issue
Yeah,
with
no,
eggs
that's true.
that's going on. But it just shows that there are a lot of alternative methods and things that we don't even think about. I mean, everyone just kind of goes with the status quo, and it wouldn't even occur to someone these days to have an alternative other than what your local CVS provides for you and what everyone is doing. But we can think outside the box or outside the shampoo bottle. But you have also, Raw Egg Nationalist, just released a book that is actually kind of an annual thing that you're going to be doing with your online magazine. That's a print edition. And thank you for sending me one. I have it on my coffee table. I've gone through it and love it. But describe what your intention is for this project and why it's important to you.
So I, in addition to writing my books and articles and things, and I run this online magazine called Man's World. And I got the idea when I was writing my second book, 3 Lives of Golden Age Bodybuilders, which was about 3 bodybuilders from the sort of 50s and 60s, the golden age, so-called golden age of bodybuilding. One of them, Reg Park, who was Arnold Schwarzenegger's mentor, had a magazine that was called Man's World. And when I was writing about this, I saw and I thought, actually, you know what? I can't remember the last time I read a good man's magazine. There's this old chestnut. Oh, I read Playboy for the articles, right? No, genuinely, I care about the content. And but it was true. I mean, Playboy once upon a time actually had really, really good writers writing for it, and it's just deteriorated terribly in recent years. But I thought it would be nice to resurrect the man's magazine for the 21st century and give it some sort of internet attitude, some sort of little bit of sort of 4chan attitude, and get some anonymous people writing for it. I write for it. Other people in my sphere write for it. We have some big names as well. We have people like Noor bin Laden, Darren Beattie has been in it, people like that. And it's just, it's a regular thing, comes out about 4 times a year. It's sort of 300 to 400 pages online, electronic, sort of PDF form. And then at the end of the year, I gather together the best articles, or a selection of the best articles, and publish them as a hardback annual, rather like Playboy used to do with its annuals in the 1950s and 60s. And it's a nice substantial coffee table book. It's the kind of thing that you could give as a gift, and hopefully maybe,
but very family friendly, unlike Playboy. So we appreciate that.
It's family friendly. Yeah, there's no nudity, but it's the kind of thing that you could give to a family member, and hopefully set them on the right path if they're on the wrong path. Slip in a few red pills into their
Which
reading.
is great, but I love this idea of reviving, kind of the manly man's version, which of course the left tries to make fun of. And we've seen how the commercialization of this kind of clownish man, or the effeminate man, has become popularized. And even looking at now the man cave, which is just full of toys and a pool table and a golf setup or something, rather than a study with a library and a man who understood that being intellectual was a good thing, and to challenge their intellect and to grow and actually have masculine characteristics, not just features, but also internally. And so that kind of thing, I think we need to see more of, and there's certainly a market for it, because so often now we don't see any products that are geared specifically toward men, because we're erasing the measurable differences between the sexes, and that's totally a shame. So where do you see this project going next, and where can people find it?
So well, we've got a website now. I've got a website, mansworldmag.org, where you can access all of the issues easily, and it's a really fantastic website. It's been really well designed and really looks the part. As far as the development of the project goes, I'd like at some point to release the magazine in physical form, to have each issue come out as a physical magazine rather than just as an online magazine, because that would be really something to see this maybe on newsstands. I mean, that's it's a very ambitious goal, but certainly
but needed.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Well, that's the thing about the culture war. We need cultural products. I mean, we need a whole variety of cultural products. We need films, we need books, we need magazines, because at present, then the leftists have the entire territory. They have the entire territory with which to spread their message. And I think things like this are needed, and I hope it inspires people to firstly maybe to contribute to the magazine, or to get involved with something similar. But yeah, in the long term, I hope that there are more magazines like this. I hope that this is just the beginning, and that people really start to try to do more of this.
And it's sad to see over the last few decades that conservatives have largely pulled back and away from the culture, rather than investing in better arts and entertainment and magazines and cultural issues like this. And so it's great to see someone like you and people like at the Daily Wire and others that are stepping up and saying, we're not just going to have political content, we're going to have lifestyle, entertainment, all kinds of other cultural content, and not just cede that ground to the progressive leftists. So thank you so much, Raw Egg Nationalist, for coming back on. It's always fascinating to talk with you, and people should follow you at babygravy9 is your Twitter handle, but also your website one more time. And thanks again so much for joining me.
So I've got a personal website, that's raweggnationalist.com, and then the Man's World magazine website is mansworldmag.org. It's been a real pleasure, Jenna. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And when and we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook. You need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. Experts have been warning that a food shortage could be coming even in the United States. They've been telling us this for months. John Boyd Jr., a fourth-generation farmer, told Fox News that, quote, "We're going to see empty food shelves in the coming months. And this is why survival food is more important than ever." He's right. You need to create your stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. This is not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years super survival food. This is hand-packed right in a family-owned facility here in the USA. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and stack easily. But most importantly, they are survival food, and this is necessary as we have no idea what the next coming years may bring. So right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. That's the number 4patriots.com and use code Jenna to get 10% off your very first purchase. Included in this 3-month survival kit, you will get the year-long guarantee plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com. That's the number 4patriots.com. Use promo code Jenna to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, promo code Jenna. Start building your stockpile today. Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now, you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. So go to MyPillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's MyPillow.com, promo code Jenna.